For today, I want to give you a sizable taste into stress planets and enough of an idea so you can kind of carry on, do your research. There's three main areas for today that I was hoping to kind of guide you through. I'm going to walk you through the basics of what are stress planets, some of the technical, behavioral, psychological, talk about the Gauquelin's research and their Mars effect. Next, we're going to look at stress planets through the three house crosses. That's a system we use in the Huber approach, and I'll explain it all. Lastly, I'm going to weave in some examples here and there, but it's not going to be in-depth analysis over charts and stress planets. I just want to give you enough of a ride through so you can really relate to it. And then hopefully some practical things that we can do with our clients in a real coaching, consulting kind of format, support them in working with these juicy hotspots of stress planets in their birth charts. As I mentioned, I have at the end a list of resources if you want to dig deeper, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, just my email contact info, shoot me a message, and happy to kind of give you a little bit of direction if I can do so. To kind of start, this Prezi is aimed at the level of astrology that is here to kind of support personal development or insights and freedom. I mentioned that so we're clear. We see that the birth chart is really ours to discover, and that while it can be confusing to uncover charts for ourselves, as we know, and certainly clients at times, that the analogy of my flying window here, my fancy video that I made through canva.com, the analogy of a maze versus a labyrinth, I think, rings really true. So just quickly, a maze is a place you can get lost in. It has dead corners, that whole thing. But in a labyrinth, you can always find a way out. And I love this quote. I have no idea who said it, but it speaks to a bit of the work we can possibly uncover today with learning about pieces of ourselves within the birth chart as a gentle walk in a labyrinth, exploring around, knowing that no matter how deep we go, we can always pop out eventually. And for those that kind of had the ability to watch movies in the 80s, you never know, we might even bump into David Bowie today, perhaps. Shameless plug for one of my favorite movies, Labyrinth. Highly recommended, by the way. So all of this is thanks to the tireless work the Hubers have done, and certainly the Gauquelins. Bruno and his wife Louise, who contributed to astrological psychology of the Huber approach. They were German, Swiss psychologists, astrologers, esotericists. And while I studied traditional astrology, my main system for natal work and psychosynthesis is absolutely the Huber method, which is an intensely researched, highly detailed, comprehensive way of working with a birth chart. And there's nothing really dramatically new in its concept because it follows a lot of traditional thinking in many respects. Once you pop the hood, take a look at it. They were very fortunate to have worked alongside Roberto Assagioli, the founder of psychosynthesis, who was a contemporary of Jung and Freud. And they'd actually lived with Assagioli in 58 for 3 years. And back in those days when we had access to chart files, and Assagioli literally worked with him on doing the research and provided him with all his hundreds of case files. So they were really working at a depth level with psychology and the birth charts. The Huber approach, I sometimes call it astrological psychosynthesis, is aimed to assist in the process of psychological and spiritual growth. It encompasses our heredity, environment, spirituality, and kind of links with the cosmos. Thus, we are made whole both within ourselves and in our integration with the world and the universe. So in other words, it's quite a simple system. I'm just giving you a bit of an overview of the Huber approach because I'm going to show you the charts that I know look a little bit different, and might as well just at least bring you into the Huber world a little bit. As a quick overview, there are, as you can count, 3 main charts used in the Huber approach. There's the natal chart, which you're all familiar with, and next we have 2 others, the nodal chart or the moon node chart and the house chart. And we can use all three in any consultation, sometimes more, sometimes less, as we all know, depending on the client and the situation. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of each one. Let's start with the moon node chart because it reflects our past and our shadow. It's really an amazing chart, and the book Moon Node Astrology by the Hubers is really worth checking into, and I can show you that later on. But yeah, it's called Moon Node Astrology. It gives information into our desire nature, and it symbolizes the astral body. In terms of depth psychology, it makes visible the shadow side of our personality. It shows where our motivations, wishes, actions from the past are kind of projected into the present. And it has a timing system in itself as well too, that I'll show in a second as it relates to the age point system. So when client concerns really press on, it's usually the node chart that we need to kind of peek into to catch a glimpse of underlying motivations and what those archetypes are up to. We have another chart, and this is another well-researched chart as well called the house chart. And it seems a bit odd, but it's how the environment has kind of seen the individual and therefore tried to condition, etc., the individual. So it's a conditioned view. It's not the objective, real natal chart. It's that whole kind of nature and nurture question. I like the quote by Philip Larkin. They F you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with faults they had and add some extra just for you. So the house system is actually drawn up using equal house system. So is the moon node chart for the technical bits. And you'll actually see in the moon node chart, if you ever draw one up, that the actual zodiac signs are elongated and shrunk down as though you're kind of looking down from the heavens down at the individual. That's that kind of subjective view. And this outer to kind of inner view that, you know, coaches, teachers, friends, parents, you name it, see from the outside down onto us. And it's not the real us, of course. So that's why we use the chart as it's a whole way of that kind of outer to inner view of working with the house chart. Okay, if that's good. Lastly, I have my last slide to kind of just chat with you about the Huber approach. Is one of the main timing systems we use. It's called the age pointer life clock, and it's what a lot of astrologers tend to use from the Huber system. It's an elegant, reliable timing system that works at kind of a progression timing system, or maybe a time lord of sorts. So it's an inner timing system that showcases various periods, sequences, chapters in a person's life. Essentially, without getting into it too far, because we're going to get into stress planets, is at the AC when you're born, time starts and the hand of that clock moves counterclockwise. Each of the houses represents 6 years of life, no matter how big or small they are. So we're obviously dealing with a quadrant-based system. We use the Koch house system. And as the point of consciousness moves around the chart, it forms aspects, as you can see, conjunction right away with Pluto there. Those that use it do find an immense correspondence, level of correspondence, excuse me, between indications of the birth chart and the psychological crises or other events. So how to use it roughly would be put it at a macro level before progressions, before, you know, use it as a big level time lord system before you get into returns, transits, etc. So highly recommend it. If you want to give it a little bit of, jot it down, then this book here, The Life Clock, is by far the most comprehensive book on how to use it.